like you're a super calm, cool, collected person. You don't get rattled very easily, but that one, that's the first time I've seen you. You're just like, you were done.
Oh yeah.
You're like, I can't believe this. I'm done.
I knew I'd fucked up. I was like, oh man, like this is bad. This is not good. We're playing the footage back and it's like not looking good.
No, it looked crazy.
We're rolling.
I feel good about this one. Just so everybody knows, it's July 5th. So yesterday was the 4th of July. Morgan, how you feeling?
Like I've got a half a bottle of whiskey in my stomach.
Oof. Yeah.
It's mostly in my brain right now. That's where it's living.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll happen. That'll happen.
It was good though. It was a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was your 4th?
It was good. It was low key.
Yeah.
Just swam at the pool for a little while and then just hung out with Kate and Killian, man.
Yeah.
Just a fam, just hanging out.
Cool.
Trying to stay away from the outdoors because it's just too hot.
No fireworks?
No, we were in bed way before that.
Yeah, we didn't have any fireworks either.
Yeah, it's just like once you've seen fireworks, they're kind of all the same. And you got to fight the crowds and all that stuff that we're just not interested in these days. So
yeah,
and somehow my son slept through it all too because they started pretty early in our neighborhood, but man, he slept through it like a champ, man.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So speaking of hot summers, 3 years ago, 2020, it was the end of July. We did a shoot. I'll just paint a picture here. So it's, like I said, it's the end of July. It's probably 95 degrees out. Humidity's insane. We're in Florida, obviously. We are in an abandoned home that we have spent the last couple of days fully furnishing for a shoot because it's abandoned, empty home. And no AC, some water, a little bit of water, whatever we brought with us. And about, 7 to 8 people making a music video. So that was kind of setting the stage for a project that we did for an artist called Lonewolf.
Yep.
And the music video was for a song called Take Me Away.
Yep.
That was a shoot that we learned a ton on. It was, we'd only been really working together. Well, we've been working together for a little longer than that, but we'd only been like a company for 4 months, I guess, at that time, 3 or 4 months. Yeah. So it was really, really early on. And we just wanted to do something different, do something new, and do something that would stretch us. So that music video really taught us a lot. So I figured we'd just talk about that.
Yeah. That was one of the first pieces that we had done officially together.
Yeah.
Like we had shot the first, which we talked about in the last podcast, we had shot the first video for him. And that was kind of like, that was the first project that we really like tried to put everything into to build the portfolio for 1836. And then this one, he came back almost immediately for another one. And we just wanted to go all in and keep building that portfolio. We were definitely in like the portfolio building stage. So it's like, okay, well, let's take whatever the budget is for the project and just kill ourselves to stretch it as far as we can.
Right.
Which I think was like smart, like it was a good move for us at the time, because it really allowed us to flex some of the creative skills, and it was very ambitious. It was a very, very ambitious shoot.
Yeah.
I think it was 3 days.
Yeah, it was 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing, we talked about this a little bit on the first podcast. It's like the idea of using paid work or anything you can think of doing as, a portfolio builder. Because when you're starting out, the hardest thing is trying to convince people to hire you to do a project when you can't show that you've done it before, right? That's the whole thing about, whether you're a filmmaker or even photography, graphic designer, whatever it is, you have to be able to show that you can do the work, right?
Yeah.
So for us, like that was something we knew early on. Like, all right, we have to treat every single project as a portfolio builder. That way we can we can point to it later and say like, we know how to do that. We've done it. Here's our proof of concept for that. So with every project that, especially early on that we did, it was like, all right, we're going to go all in. We're going to spend way more hours than what we're being paid for. We're going to fully furnish an abandoned home. We're going to do all these things, a lot of it just out of pocket, because we wanted it to be as good as it can be, because we knew it was bigger than just the project itself. This is building our reel. So with that, yeah, it was a ton of work. I mean, I remember, let's just go back even to the beginning. I remember we had some calls with the artist, and we spent probably the better part of a month just in treatments, creating treatments for different concepts. He kind of had an idea of what he wanted to do, and we would develop a treatment around that, and then things would change a little bit, and then we'd have another idea and we'd develop another treatment. So we spent probably like the better part of a month doing that.
Right.
And we knew we wanted it to be really good, and we wanted it to be something that would stretch us, but also something that we could actually come through on,
Yeah.
So what we ended up deciding on was more of like a narrative structure, right? So it was telling a story, and it's the way that we decided to tell it, it was kind of a non-linear story. So there was flashbacks, and there was flash forwards, and there was, the kind of a couple of narratives weaving in and out of each other, which is tough. We'd never done that really before. So that was challenging. But we also had this idea of doing it a little more abstract, and having like these abstract set pieces in it. And that was actually what the artist was like really stoked on.
Yeah.
Like the concept as a whole, but like that was the pitch that he was like, yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah.
So the plan was to build these set pieces and to include them in the same narrative. So the video that ended up being made is actually very close to the script we had written out. It's very close, minus those black orbs that we were going to have everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, the overall narrative we ended up with was essentially following a family, the soldier who had gone to war and is dealing with PTSD, post-military. And he has a child with him, and he's dating somebody, and it's just the conflict and the struggle of understanding how PTSD can affect soldiers after the war, and then how relationships are affected, and then her struggles with that. And so we're kind of seeing both sides of the coin there, and it's a pretty dark piece. Like it's a pretty honest piece, and she was dealing with suicide, both of them, and alcoholism, and all these different things. And it was a really fun piece to do, because it felt, we were able to sort of like express like an honest portrayal, or as honest as we could, of these situations. Yeah. And
it's a nuanced situation too. And I remember early on when we were writing that concept, it was like, we wanted to be careful not to go too heavy handed in either direction, and just give, like you said, like an honest portrayal of that kind of a situation, and, I think we did, in the end. But yeah, when I think back about it now, like there's so many things that were challenging about that project, from like concept creation, the story, like I said, just how nuanced it is, to pre-production, production, post-production. I mean, it was one hell of a project.
Yeah. So with, I guess so you have this, it's a non-linear story, but you are seeing a narrative play out, right? It's like you're seeing these things play out in both of these characters, and how it affects the daughter, and all these different things. And the metaphysical side that we tried to portray was these big black textured orbs, and the orb was getting bigger. It was essentially like the representation of the conflict. And it was supposed to manifest itself inside of different scenes, and it started small and got a little bigger and got a little bigger and got a little bigger. And I remember we were trying to figure out, it's like we wanted to have it practical, like a practical effect. So we took these beach balls And we got from the dollar store, we got all different size beach balls, I think 3 or 4 of them. And it was like a 16-inch ball, 24-inch ball, all the way up to a 6-foot ball, this massive beach ball.
Yeah, it was huge.
And then we took, what was it? It was like joint compound.
Right, yeah.
And covered the ball with these textured joint compound and then painted it matte black. And that was like a whole project in and of itself, getting those things together. And then you have to figure out how to transport them because we didn't think about like, how are we going to get them there, you know?
Yeah.
And we set up the first one. We had them hung by strings. We were going to like take out and post or whatever.
And that was the first day of the shoot.
That was day one.
Day one.
In the house.
In the house, yeah. Day one in the house was our first day production.
Yep.
And we were shooting all of the interior narrative stuff there. So we had those hung, which was a pain in the ass, just trying to get those things hung.
Yeah.
And it was already like, again, day one. So we're like, okay, hopefully this all works because we have 3 days to get this right. We got to get it right. We had talent that came in from out of town. Mm-hmm. Shanae was from out of state, and then I think Josh came in from like Tampa with his daughter, who was also in it as well, Lily. And so the pressure's on. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, we're all sweating our asses off in this house with no AC, you know, trying to get to know each other. I'm trying to get to know the talent to make them feel comfortable because of the subject matter that we're about to shoot.
Right.
You know, with domestic violence and some of these scenes we had to shoot were pretty heavy. And we have these balls hanging everywhere. One of them is literally taking up an entire room.
Yep.
So just to make our life even harder, it was like, okay, how the hell are we going to shoot this with these spheres hanging here?
Yeah.
And we tried. I mean, we definitely like the first couple hours, like camera rolling, shooting, those were hung and they were in the shots. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to figure out how to light them and just trying to like figure out framing and what works. And I remember this isn't the only time this has happened in a shoot, but it was probably the first time this happened to us, where we just looked at each other and we were like, I don't know what the hell we're going to do. This is not working. Like we have to figure something else out. This just is not going to work. Yeah.
And it was right in the middle of the day. It was like when we were trying to, we had the 6-foot orb inside this tiny living room, and the living room was way smaller than we thought it was going to be. So the thing took up the whole damn space, and we're just looking at each other. The like clients there, you know, the artist, everyone's there. Everyone's just standing around, and you and I are just like panicking. Like, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And we finally just had to go to the client and just tell him like, hey, this isn't going to work. Like, we still have a plan for this, but we're not going to be able to include this stuff. Like, we tried and it just didn't work out. And that's just the reality of shoots sometimes. You know, it's like, it's problem solving and thinking on your feet. And sometimes based on budget or time limit or whatever it is, you know, like you just can't, like, you have to cut things and rearrange the project.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know if we'd thought about it much ahead of time, like a plan B. I think we were pretty much just like, we're doing it, full steam ahead. But the truth is, like, we ended up shooting pretty much shot for shot the exact same piece minus that kind of abstract element. And I think we only had to cut one scene, which was, you know, like it was going to be outside on some street at night, and he drives into this big orb, whatever. Yeah. We only had to cut that. Everything else was pretty much like shot for shot what we needed it to be. Mm-hmm. So it still worked. Yeah. But it could have easily not worked. Yeah. Like if we just had the concept been more dependent on that, then the whole thing could have fallen apart. Yeah. But it's, those kind of moments, and they've happened since. They happen less and less because we kind of try to learn our lessons and make sure we figure that stuff out in pre-production instead of on the day. But a lot of it too, like in those scenarios, is just knowing, like Morgan was saying, like you were saying, everyone's sitting there waiting for you, right? The cast and the crew, they're all there. They're waiting on your direction for the next thing. What are we doing next? They're looking at us, right? So you set the tone for the set. And that was a big lesson in just like, okay, we're hot. We're drenched in sweat. We're thirsty. We're just like, we're already tired. And this is the first day and it's not working. Yeah. Like it'd been really easy just to like, you know, throw our hands up and walk out in a fit, but we didn't, you know, and that was a big, like a lesson in like, okay, we have to stay cool. We have to let everybody know, like, it's okay, moving forward. You know, let the client know it's all right. We're gonna get this done. Not gonna be exactly how we thought it would, but we're gonna do it. You know, and that was like a really valuable thing for me. It's like that was a testing point. You know, it was like, okay, we can do this the right way or the wrong way. And I know, like, I've carried that through every other project, because, like you said, like every project has its version of that. It might not be that, you know, obvious and like literal, like we're not using these big fixtures, but every project has something like that. It's like, okay, talent didn't show up, or they didn't show up on time, or they showed up and they didn't want to do this thing that they signed up for, literally signed up to do, and their agency told them they were going to do, you know, like those things happen all the time. Or a location falls through and now you have to figure something else out, you know, or a camera breaks and now what do you do? You know, like those things happen in every single shoot, and it's really how you deal with it, you know, and thinking on your feet. And something else that was funny about that shoot too, go back to day one, was we had some issues with the camera setting. So to go back a little further too, that was the first shoot that we did. We were using Sonys up until that shoot. I think we were shooting on like A7 III and A6500. Those kind of mirrorless cameras. Right before that shoot, we had gotten into Blackmagic, so we had some pocket cinemas. I think we only had one at that time, the 4K. And so that was like our first shoot using this camera that we were very unfamiliar with. And we're just betting that it's all going to go well, and obviously you're like research and everything, and I know you took a ton of time like trying to figure it out and make sure you knew like how to light with that camera and the best way to go in about it, but we still had an issue with it. And I think it's because of everything else that was going on. The last thing like you're thinking of is the camera itself, you know. It's like, because everything in front of the camera right now is priority,
right?
The camera itself, you know.
And that's kind of a testament to, you know, like it's. And we knew this, like, and this is why I think you and I got into business together, right? It's like we had shot so many like run and gun solo projects that, you know, you can only do so much. Like we had just kind of hit a ceiling. We're like, okay, our capacity is capped right now, you know, and these types of things are a testament to why, you know, budgets expand so much, and why crews need to be there, and why it's important to have people specialized in what they do in order to make a project run the way it needs to run. Because when you have, you know, limited amount of people, like the director is also a grip and also a PA and also a gaffer and also whatever. And it's like we're all kind of playing multiple roles. And so when I was DPing the project, you're focused on so many other things, you know, you're focused on getting a 500-pound piano into the room, like all the other things that are going on, that your dedication to your job on the day gets lost. It gets diluted in everything else. And that was like a big lesson for me, understanding like, oh, like this is why, you know, a commercial is going to have 300 people on it, you know, because everyone has their role, and like the DP can be a DP, like just focus on that thing. The director can just be a director. And we were I mean, like you said, I think it was what, 2 or 3 other people with us on the crew. I
think our crew was just you and I plus 2. We had someone who was pulling focus for us, and also, like you said, doing everything else too. And they're up there in the rafters trying to hang lights and stuff like that. And then I think we had one more person. We had just like a PA just helping us out. So it was a very limited crew. And honestly, like the crew we were using, they weren't like, you know, our focus puller. He's not like a career first AC or focus puller. You know, he was someone who was figuring it out along with us, you know. So now we have extra equipment now because we have the focus motors, and we have, you know, all those things to worry about that inevitably break and stop working, you know. And then, it's just like you were saying, like every one of those things, people spend a lifetime to try to, you know, master, right? They're career gaffers who, that's what they do. They set up the lights. That's their focus, you know. And then you have every single role on set. It's like people dedicate their lives to it. So when you're spread thin doing it all on your own, things get missed. It's just, it happens all the time. It's happened to every one of us in our own ways, you know. But So what ended up happening with the camera on that shoot?
So we shot day one. I think it was like a 15-hour day or something. It was a really long day, mostly in that house, or maybe all of it was in the house.
I think it was all in that house. Yeah.
And we were shooting everything at 48 frames. And that's a lot of times is what we do with B-rolls. We'll shoot it at 48 frames. That way you have the option to play back at 24, or you have the option to slow it down by 50%. And as far as motion blur and things like that, you know, it's fairly unnoticeable, you know, when you play it back at 24 frames. So 48 frames is kind of a sweet spot for things like music videos where you have B-roll and things like that, where you don't know if you're going to slow it down or not.
Yeah.
But with that, you also have to change your shutter speed.
Yeah.
And the shutter speed was not right. I think the shutter speed was set for 24 frames.
Right.
So we're shooting 48 frames at a shutter speed of 1/50.
Right.
And had no idea until the next day, because we had to dump footage, and we had a car shoot. We were shooting fishing and a car scene.
That's right. Yeah. We went to the office the next morning or whatever, because our shoot wasn't until the afternoon, evening.
Yeah.
The second day.
Mm-hmm.
So the second day we're at the office, and Morgan's you're a super calm, cool, collected person. You don't get rattled very easily, but that's the first time I've seen you. You're just like, you were done.
Oh yeah.
You're like, I can't believe this. I'm done.
I knew I had fucked up. I was like, oh man, like this is bad. This is not good. We're playing the footage back and it's like not looking good.
No, it looked crazy.
And like day one was the big day. It was like this was an empty house. There was nothing in there. We brought all of the plates, all of the like kitchen utensils. We had to black out the windows because it was supposed to be at night. So we had these big tarps outside of the windows with lights in them. We had that massive piano that we had to carry in there. We had couches, coffee tables, flags. I mean, we set decked that entire house.
Yeah, it was multiple rooms too.
The bedroom.
It was like kitchen, living room, bedroom, hallway. Yeah, it was a lot.
Beds, dressers. I mean, we were Facebook Marketplace going around to people's houses, retirement homes, picking them up.
That's right, yeah.
So it was days of doing that. So like it was just the big day, you know, that was the big day that we'd already been stressed about, that we'd already been working for a week trying to like slowly bring things into the house. And so, yeah, when I saw that the footage was off, like I panicked. Like that was it. I was just like, I'm done. This is it. Like I'm never doing another project again. Like there was so much riding on this project because it was something that we're like, we're going to put everything into this project. And on the biggest day of the project, I fucked it up. And so,
well, then, another thing too is like, it was a client project too. It wasn't like something we were just doing for fun.
Right.
You know, like there's
money on the table.
There's money on the table. We wanted to come through, you know, for him. It was like, we want to make sure this is good. Like, so that was, oh man, that day sucked. Yeah. But then I think we just figured it out. And then day two, that afternoon, evening was fine. Right. I mean, that was, once we had that figured out. And then the footage itself, we still used. Yeah.
We figured out a way. I can't remember how we ended up fixing it, but we found a way to fix it. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah. Like we interpreted the footage somehow.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And it looks fine. You know, like we used a bunch of it in our reel. Like it's good looking footage, you know, but there was some things that like we just couldn't use because of like the weird motion blur on there.
That's so funny, man.
So day two, so we get over that. We're like, okay, we've kind of found a way that we can probably fix this. We still weren't 100% sure, but we're like, we got to move forward. Like everyone's already there waiting. We're late.
People are in town for this. Yeah.
And we had it was in Bradenton. We were shooting like a fishing scene on a dock of the family. And then there was this driving scene. So we brought a car trailer.
We were in Parrish.
Parrish,
Parrish,
that's
Florida.
Where we were. Yeah. And we brought that car trailer out to shoot the car scenes. And this is just kind of like a testament to the DIY nature of things. It's like, well, you have a car scene and it's like you can go, you know, get your rails and set everything up. But we didn't have a budget for that. No. Nor did we understand how to do that. Like we didn't have any, we just knew we had to shoot a moving car scene. And we were we were using Vazen anamorphics.
Right.
So we were on prime lenses, stuck at a fixed focal length.
Yeah, 40 mil. And did we even have another one at that time with a 28 mil, maybe?
We might have had the 28, yeah. But we ended up putting the truck on the trailer.
On your dad's trailer.
Yep.
We went and got the trailer from your dad's house.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we had a tow strap, like a yellow tow strap that we hooked to the mirror or something, and I wrapped around my waist. And we just drove down the road, like shooting outside the window, getting different angles, things like that, and highly illegal.
Oh yeah,
like
we had permits for none of this.
No,
and we wouldn't have gotten a permit to do that. I mean, it was very sketchy, very dangerous.
And I think we had did he have a beer in his hand?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, so yeah. Well, that was another thing too. But he wasn't driving, so
right. He technically wasn't driving.
No, but he did have an open container in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that was so sketchy seeing you hanging out of that thing, man. But and then after that too, so we did that a couple times. So we found a bridge in Parrish. Parrish is like a kind of a country town. It's kind of out in the sticks a little bit. Definitely more than Bradenton and Sarasota. So that's why we went there, because we knew we'd have less trouble with people, stopping us.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that. We found this bridge, went over it a couple times while you were kind of hanging off the side, like the side door.
Mm-hmm.
Shot a few angles of that. And then we actually ended up putting you in the trunk of a car.
Yes.
And you were just trunk open in a car, getting some handheld of the car. The car was behind following the camera car. So shot to the front of the car, or the front of the truck. And we had cops pull up behind us, and they were driving with us for a little while, and we're just like, oh shit, what's gonna happen here? And nothing happened. We were fine. We shot all of it. People were looking at us really funny, because obviously, like, we spent probably a couple hours doing that, just back over the bridge, back over the bridge, back. And somehow we got away with it. I don't know how, but no one stopped us. There was no issues.
Yeah.
You didn't die, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And we got some cool stuff, you know. And we just, like you were saying, like, so much of it is just making it happen. You know. And I'm not saying that was the right thing to do. And these days we're a lot more cautious, and we pull permits and we do things the right way for the most part. But back then, like, we didn't have the budget for it, and we knew that it would help. You know, it would help the project. It was a big part of the story is him driving around. So we just did it.
Yep.
We did it, figured it out, made it happen, and thankfully everything went okay.
Yeah.
And no one was hurt.
That's part of growing in this industry. It's just like, even still today, it's like, like there's things that we learned that we're probably like, probably shouldn't do that anymore. You know, that was a little sketchy, whatever. But like, it seems like no matter how big the budget gets and how big the project gets, like, there's still always like the mentality of like beg, borrow, steal. Like, you just got to do what you got to do. Like, the budget's never big enough,
right?
Ever, because we are going to stretch that as far as we can.
Yeah.
You know, so if we have a budget for this, it's like, well, what if we did this? You know, like, what if it could be on a crane or whatever it is? And so you end up having to manufacture something in every single project, you know, and we've tried to keep that sort of mentality as we've like moved up and moved on in different projects. Is like, how can we take what we have and the knowledge we have and then do something that we haven't done?
Yeah.
You know, and how can we make this better than we've ever made it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, you know, but
that's what keeps it fun too, though. You know, we kind of pride ourselves on being able to stretch a budget like that. Yeah. Because it's fun, you know, like you get into it and you're like, there's always going to be other creative ideas that you get that are beyond the scope, and they're going to be ideas that we get stoked on, and we're like, all right, let's do it. And we figure it out. But yeah, there was a lot of that on that shoot. And honestly, I'm glad we did it. I think a lot of it ended up, all of it ended up, you know, making it onto the final cut. Yep. And well, for the most part, all of it. And it was. I think overall, it was work that I'm proud of. You know, I'm proud of just because I think more so because I know what went into it. Sure. You know, I know how much we worked on that, and so it was a fun one. But that was day 2. Yep. Day 2, we did the driving sequence stuff. Day 3 was in studio. So we also shot a performance with the band. which, is pretty usual for a music video. You're going to, even if it's a narrative, you're probably still going to shoot a performance at some point, which is great about music videos because it gives you that eject button in the edit. Like having that performance to go back to, it kind of covers sins. You know, it's like if your narrative isn't quite there, like you always cut away back to that performance and it makes sense and it works. It's a music video, so having that is always really helpful. And in this case, we shot it in studio. So the band, again, a lot of them were from out of town, so they flew in and we just spent a day in studio shooting performance. Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was maybe the day before, a couple days before, I'm not sure. So the artist, he's like a solo artist. Like he makes everything himself. He didn't really have a band at the time.
Right.
And I remember him coming to us and being like, hey,
that's right. Yeah. I forgot about that.
I don't know if the band's going to make it. Like, we got to figure something out. And like, you play guitar and I play drums. So he's asking us, he's like, would you be willing to play drums and like someone else shoot the, we were like trying to figure out like, how are we going to, I think we ended up just pulling friends in to play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was, Victoria, who was, I think she was like PAing on that shoot, but she worked with us a ton. She's awesome.
Yeah.
It was one of her friends, I think.
Yes.
And
Joey.
Yeah. And he plays guitar in a band, I think. So she's like, I know a guy who could probably do it. He'd probably be down to do it. Mm-hmm. So she called him and he was game for it. And then I don't remember who, it was a drummer.
I think Steven.
Yeah.
He ended up coming and playing drums, and they had a day or two to listen through the song, try to figure out the best they could. Yep. So, at least when we were doing close-ups on their fingers on the guitar, it looked believable,
Yeah. They did a great job.
They killed it.
Yeah, they really did.
Like, and I still like that. I guess from the whole project, like the look of the performance, like it was we used all like 3200 Kelvin, like tungsten lighting, like backlit, like this we kind of leaned into the studio look of things, big black box studio. And a lot of it was silhouetted, this very like backlit kind of dark environment. And the set deck of the narrative, was something that like I'm still really proud of. Like it had everything felt cohesive in that shoot. Like the house that we were able to get into was like this old cabin style house with like wooden walls, and it just kind of had that like aged texture to it.
A lot of warm tones.
Yeah,
that's true. That's something to think through as well, is like, even if you're shooting a performance or something that's completely different from your narrative, like it all still has to feel and work together. It has to, even aesthetically, like you're saying, like color temperatures, color palette, all that stuff matters, because then if it doesn't, then it's jarring when you're cutting between the two. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think it all worked out really nicely. And I think in the studio, we're mainly you're doing a lot of, like Steadicam. I mean, it wasn't a Steadicam, but it was something like it, and handheld, really. It's between those two things. So the handheld shots kind of give you that kinetic energy, and then the Steadicam stuff gives you those epic pushes and pulls and things like that. And that's something that we do quite a bit, especially for music videos. It's nice to have the mixture of the both, so that you can kind of cut between them and inject energy when you need it and things like that. But
and with music videos, it's fun because there's like little, like you can kind of go crazy like with camera work, So a lot of it was like, these pushes, and they would push into like a Dutch, like, so you'd start kind of spinning the camera, and you'd have these like kind of trippy visuals. And then, in certain parts of the song, like if you're shooting, like they were like a rock band. So certain parts of the song that are heavy, like you can there's little tips and tricks, like just shaking the camera, like literally violently shaking the camera while keeping your composition kind of gives you this like in-camera feel of energy. And you can do fun things like that, a bunch of whips in and out. And then you're just, there was in between takes, I would just go up to the lights and just kind of move the camera, and any chaotic angle, and those little like light flares coming through, and being able to kind of like overlay those inside of the B-roll and things like that, and moving in and out of the narrative to B-roll, like they're a lot of fun to shoot in that way, right? Because you can just kind of go crazy.
And the whole time you're thinking of the edit as you're shooting, right? So you're thinking, okay, what are my transitions here? And that's something that's cool too, is like, like even on like whatever, the downbeat of a chorus, like just shaking the camera once into that chorus.
Yep.
You've been rolling, you've been holding it, say, on the drummer or whatever, but knowing that that chorus is coming, you just shake the camera like that because that gives you your in point for a cut in.
Right.
You know, it gives you that energy into that cut. So it's really thinking through the edit while you're shooting, even for performance.
Yeah. So question for you. So you directed the project. What, as a director, did you learn in that project? Like, what was like the big takeaway? So
big takeaway for me, I think, is one, working with talent is typically, for a director, that's the number one thing. It's just making sure that performances, that your talent, that your actors or your models or whoever it is, are comfortable. They know what they're doing, and they have kind of, in each scene, they have a purpose. They know what the purpose of that moment is and where they're trying to go in the narrative as a whole. So with that particular shoot, neither the three of them were actors. One of them was a model. The other two had never done any acting, as far as I know. They were just kind of regular people, you know. So in directing them, you can't really use like your normal, you know, you can't use like actor talk, some things that they're going to understand that way. Not even at the time that I was even that comfortable giving those kind of pointers or that kind of insider direction. But because they were just non-actors, I learned how to just be able to direct them into any of the performances that they gave, you know. So it was really just about, the challenge there was just trying to make sure that they knew exactly kind of what the emotion in that moment was, you know, like where we were in the story, because it was shot all out of, you know, it was shot all out of place, and, you know, day one ended up being later in the story and all these things. It was kind of a lesson for me in trying to like direct someone on, what are we doing right now? What's the most important thing about, you know, the emotion that we're trying to capture right now? So anyway, so that was challenging, obviously, because I'd never really worked with non-actors before. At that time, I'd barely worked with actors before. So it was like, you know, I was just learning on my feet. But what I learned about that, though, is if you choose the right people, then it makes life very easy. They came in and they killed it, honestly. Like they just, they got it, you know. And I think a lot of that came down to the material itself, you know. Josh was ex-military, so he understood that world, you know, and he gave one hell of a performance. I mean, he was great. Like, you just call action and he went, you know. So I think it was a big lesson for me, in that, you know, you don't have to just work with actors. I mean, there's a lot of people who can understand it as long as they get the story in context, you know, as a whole. They understand what the end goal of this project is, you know, how we're trying to make people feel from start, middle to end, you know. And I know, like, I was able to have some Zoom calls with them beforehand, which were huge, even just to put faces to names, so they knew who I was, so they felt comfortable on the day, you know. Was able to do that, which was really helpful. And, you know, again, past that, like, a lot of it was just on them.
Yeah.
They weren't trained actors. They didn't, you know, I gave them what little direction I could, for them to be able to do it. But it taught me that you don't have to always work with actors. You know, a regular person can give you a really great performance if they know the context, you know, as a whole. Yeah. So I think for me as a director, that was probably the biggest lesson I learned. Yeah. You know, and it was really cool. It was really cool to see it happen. It was like, man, they made my job really easy, you know, because again, back to what we were talking about earlier, my focus wasn't just on them. Right. It was on everything else as well. Like, all of our attention was split. Yeah. So I feel like we lucked out with them.
And there was some heavy, there were two scenes that really stood out to me that were like pretty like acting heavy scenes. You know, there was a scene in the kitchen between the husband and the wife where there's like an argument. And it's like a fight scene. Like, it gets very like heated, and that it's hard to, like, that's hard to do, you know, with people who have no acting experience. You know, they don't understand like how things are going to be portrayed on camera and things like that. Like, I remember that scene ended up turning out so good. Like, it was it was such a believable scene, you know, like
Yeah.
between Josh and Shanae, like they like owned that scene so well.
Yeah, like he's smashing cabinets and screaming at her,
Mhm.
you know. And then the one in the hallway was
Yes.
even more physical.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing too. A huge worry of mine going into that was making sure that they, especially Shanae, was comfortable, because
Yep.
I mean, that's some, when you're in the moment, like even if you know that we're acting, this is a music video, when you have someone you don't know, you know, and Josh is a great guy,
Yeah.
but she doesn't know him,
Right.
you know.
And he's a pretty big dude.
He's
too.
a big guy,
Yeah.
you know, he's a pretty imposing.
Yep.
And when you know, when the camera's rolling and it's going, it's really hard to separate, you know, like the reality from what's just performance.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's still happening.
Yeah.
You know, like this guy is screaming at you and hitting cabinets and, you know, like pushing you in a hallway and all these things. So you have to be really careful and just make sure that everyone there is comfortable.
Yep.
And the good thing is, you know, like Shanae had her husband there
Mhm.
for, you know, support, which was awesome, just
Yeah.
to have him there, knowing like, hey, he's here, you know.
Yep.
So that was huge. But then just, you know, having conversations, making sure they're comfortable with it, you know. And Shanae was game. Like, she was just like, yeah, no, totally, absolutely understand. And we choreographed it so that it was safe.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't going to get hurt.
Right.
But it's intense, you know. Like, it was intense for us watching it. We're like, whoa, this, you know. And so in like directing that, a lot of it too was, like with Josh, was just like trying to up it, you know,
Yes.
because a lot of the time, like an actor or whoever, they think that their actions are bigger than they are,
Mhm.
you know, and they want to they don't want to be cheesy, or they want to kind of come into themselves a little bit. So a lot of it is just like, hey, bigger.
Yeah.
Like in this moment, this can be bigger and it needs to be bigger.
Right.
So like break the cabinet if you have to,
Mhm.
like whatever you feel okay doing, but just go as big as you can.
Mhm.
And for those particular scenes, like that worked, you
Yeah.
know, like we kind of had to get that from them. You had
Yeah.
to get these big performances, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that translated, you know. I think he did that, and we were all like, oh shit, this is, you know, it was intense.
It
for
was,
sure.
yeah. That shot in the hallway. So they have the fight in the kitchen, and then she walks away. She's like, as if she's going into the bedroom, like just, you know, whatever, she's done with him. He ends up chasing her, and there's a shot where it's like, this profile shot where like she comes into the frame of, like, he pushes her into the wall and then basically gets up in her face.
Right, he slams his hands like next to her. Yeah.
And I remember doing that over and over and over again, and just like, but it was one of those weird dances where you're kind of like, are you comfortable with
Right.
this? Because like, in order for that to be believable, like you said, like the action has to be so big,
Yeah.
you know? And so it would get bigger and bigger, and we were like, man, this is
Yeah.
intense, you know? But they
Yeah.
were just so good about it. They were just,
Yeah.
and in between scenes, obviously, like,
Yeah, we're having
everyone was-
conversations.
yeah,
and-
everyone was comfortable, and everyone was
Yeah.
great, and everyone was friendly, and like they're
Yeah.
the sweetest people. Like,
Yeah.
so they got along really well. But as soon as the camera started rolling, it was just like, man, like, can we do bigger?
Right,
But
yeah.
it was like it was this dance, you know. You really wanted
Yep.
to. So yeah, that was. Those two scenes really stood out to me from like a directorial perspective. you
Yeah,
know?
and you know what it also taught me too, like, so like being in that environment, it kind of like, I can understand why there's these horror stories of directors, of film directors who push people too far
Mhm.
and have these like toxic, uncomfortable sets. I feel like if you're not on top of it and you don't really give a shit, it would be easy for that to start happening.
Yeah.
Because if you get too focused on what we're capturing and that's all that matters, and this is, you know, my frame and what's in it, and, you know, this is just, it's mine, and I need to make sure it's perfect and it's exactly what I want, and who cares how everyone else feels about it. Like, I can see why people can get into that if they're not caring about who is actually doing these things, you know?
Right.
And that was something like, I don't ever want to get close to that,
Mhm.
because as far as I'm concerned, like, it's still real life. You're still in a room with somebody, and, you know, it's like, to push people too far and past their comfort zones, to me, it's just unacceptable.
Mhm.
Like, you don't have to do that,
Mhm.
you know? So like we were really careful about like having conversations and making sure they were comfortable, and like giving breaks when needed and things like that, as much as we could, you
Yeah.
know. But it was a big lesson in that. Like, I don't ever want to get to that point where, you know, people are uncomfortable on your set just because you're trying to get this shot, you know, like what does it matter? Like it doesn't matter that much, like to make people uncomfortable and scared or, you know, or get hurt or any of those things. So yeah, that was a big thing too. And I think we navigated it well, you know? So yeah, that was a big lesson for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was really good, man. Like it was really good work.
Cool.
Like
Thanks, man.
as a director. As far as directing the performance on the day. So like we both come from the music world, so it's something that we're very comfortable with. Like we know how things should look and how things should feel when a drummer's playing or when a guitar player or singer or whatever. Yep. Like it's kind of the same protocol, right? It's kind of like your guitar player's playing his parts, but it doesn't translate quite the same on film, you know, unless those, like he's got big movements, especially when you're shooting high frame rates and you're slowing it down. Yeah. Like,
and aggressive music too, you know, like the genre matters so much in that moment. Like, it was the same. It really was the same thing. It was, hey, bigger. Yeah. It has to be bigger. Your motions have to be bigger. It's going to feel ridiculous as you're doing it. And you're going to feel like, well, I would never do this big on stage or whatever. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like for this scenario, like you said, high frame rate, this kind of aggressive music, us knowing what we were going to do to it in post is a big thing too. Cause they don't know that, you know, knowing how much we were going to slow it down and things like that. That was the direction. It was just like bigger, you know, like huge sweeping movements with your guitar and like drummer too, like be bigger. Cause it's not going to look silly. It's going to look right. You know? Yeah. And I think, for us performance stuff, we're very comfortable with that. But I think that's kind of, with music videos, that's our edge a little bit. It's like we know how to make musicians look good and look right for their instrument. Yeah, you know, like little things. You know, like I can't remember. I think it was on that shoot. Like someone didn't have their patch cable plugged into their guitar, and it's like, well, it's a pet peeve of mine. Seeing that, you know, it's like seeing a microphone without the XLR plugged into it. It's like, it's cringy to me. Because it's and I know that it is for other musicians. So it's like those little details, those things that we can pick up on, or like having your amps turned on, so like the lights on, the jewel lights on. It's like that stuff matters to us. So that translates well for a band because we're looking out for that stuff for them. You know, because we're all musicians and we understand that. You know, so yeah, performance wise, I think you know, it was kind of a breeze. I mean, it was fun. It was just a lot of like, hey, bigger motions, bigger movements, and Chino's awesome. Yeah. When it comes to performance stuff, like, which is in all the music video, well, in most of the music videos, like when he's in it, it's performance. Right? It's
and Chino is the client for us.
Chino is the client.
So he was the artist that brought us in to shoot it.
Yeah, and he's so good at that stuff. Yeah. Like honestly, like as soon as the camera's on, he takes very little direction. Yeah. Aside from like, hey, we're going to shoot a profile now, so look this way. Like it's little things like that. Like, aside from that, like his energy, his, you know, just overall, like he's on it. You know, he gets it. So, and
he's just like, I mean, we did, and we'll talk about other music videos that we did with him. I mean, we did a handful of them. Yeah. And he just like kind of kept wanting to keep pushing the music videos and stuff. And he's just like one of those guys he's just fun to work with.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
He also shoots, so he understands film, and like he has these like general concepts, but he really gave us a ton of creative freedom. He was just like, here's the idea, like you guys do what you guys do best, you know? And he's kind of always had that, and he'll be around and watching the performances and things when he's not in front of the camera, and he'll have little ideas that are super creative, but like he's not over imposing. Like he was such a fun client to work with. Like, I hope we get to work with him again.
Oh, seriously, man. I can't wait to work with him again if we do. Yeah. Hopefully we do. He doesn't live here anymore. He was here, and you know, we did, like you said, a few music videos for him, but yeah, he was like such a great client for our early days too. Yeah. Because like there's grace there, you know, but like we're also all musicians, so they're projects that we can truly collaborate on, but he also trusted us with them. So yeah, it's awesome working with him. Yeah. We get to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the fun things about shooting performances as well, and it's always like just kind of ridiculous, because for anybody who's never shot a performance, it's like, if you're going to do slow motion, like, you have to play the song at twice the speed,
right.
you know, or depending on your frame rate, you know, if it's 60 frames, it's even faster. If it's 120 frames, it's even faster. So like rock songs tend to be, you know, a little bit faster in like the BPM and the speed of the song. So you have to, like, you have these two speakers blaring, like, it's so loud. It is so loud, and there's a click track, there's a metronome. So everyone can, mostly the drummer, can keep time, because with performance videos, like, no one's making any noise. You know, the guitars aren't on,
just
whatever.
the drums.
But the drums, you can't get away from it. So you have like 120 decibels that everyone's hearing, these cymbals and things. And so you have to have your speakers loud enough for everyone to be able to hear and stay on time.
Yeah.
And unless you use in-ears, which we weren't, we were using, you know, just speakers. And then you play it at 2 times the speed. So you're already at like 150 beats per minute or whatever, pretty fast song. And then you have to play it at 300. And so the ridiculousness of it and the stupid things that happen, you know, like, because they're trying to make, you know, guitar players big movements and things, but you're doing it at twice the speed. So, like, it's just the most ridiculous looking thing when you're actually shooting it. It's just so funny because everyone's just flailing around trying to keep up with the metronome.
It's absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. It's so loud. People are moving so fast. We don't shoot the whole thing like that, but we'll do, you know, just as many takes in that, you know, double speed than we will in regular speed. So we do it just as much, but yeah, it's absolute insanity. And every time it's like cut, everyone's laughing. I mean, it's just, you can't help it. It's so ridiculous. And the way we do that too, just to get, you know, technical. So all you have to do with that, take your track, bring it into Ableton, warp, and then you just change your BPM. So knowing what your BPM was, so if it was 110, you know, you're going to warp and then change your BPM to 220 and then make sure you have your metronome in there too. So your click track, which is really helpful because especially at those speeds, you can't hear what's going on. So having that guiding light of your click track is really important because it cuts through the mix. So, and then in post, you should, in theory, just be able to bring it in, you know, go half speed and it'll line up. So the video looks slow motion because it is slow motion, but it goes along with the actual source material. It goes along with the track. And it's it's really fun to do, but yeah, in production, it's always so silly. It's just like, it's chaos.
Oh yeah.
But it takes half as long to shoot an entire take of the whole song. So that's nice too, you know, saves a little bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And with like shooting and performance, you know, like you said, like we'll probably do 15 takes throughout the day, you know, because if you're shooting your wides, you're going to go shoot your wides, maybe 3-4 takes of like your sweeping wides. And then you're going to do 3-4 takes at twice the speed. And then you do close-ups and you go, you know, you're going to do a little bit more on the singer because they're going to be more prominent in the music video. So you might do 5 takes at regular speed, then 3 or 4 takes at double speed. And you do that with every single instrument. So you end up getting whatever it is, 20 takes of this stuff, of these performances. So you can cut them all together. You know, it's a day. Like it takes time to like go through all of that. And, it's 6-7 hours of music blaring in like a dark room, trying to shoot this stuff.
But it felt so easy after 2 days of shooting outside or shooting in a house that has no AC. It's like, oh, we're in a studio, there's AC. We don't have to worry about audio. It's like we can crank that AC down. And man, it was a nice way to end the shoot. Yeah. Doing performance stuff.
Yeah. No, that was a really fun shoot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Take Me Away.
Yeah. And we did some more after that.
Yeah.
So we'll get into those next time, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's Take Me Away.
Take Me Away. Good talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers.
Cheers.